Thank you. Anybody here because they are thinking about quitting their jobs and getting a job in Woolworths stacking shelves? Yeah, it's something that has crossed my mind multiple times. So what we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about warning signs and red flags to watch for. We're going to talk about what to do in the midst of a client crisis. So when things go pear-shaped, how do you respond? Including some suggestions for exact phrases to use. We're going to look at minimising your risk by having an awesome client onboarding process and then getting paid. Who wants to get paid? Woo! And then being future focused. So I'm going to give you a few ideas for how you might restructure how you get paid so that you do get paid. So I'm Brooke McCarthy. I have 15 years experience in the digital realm and I have a background in public relations. I'm also a business coach. Please don't hold that against me. I don't know this surefire 7 pathway to success, so I'm not going to try and sell you that. And so 11 years ago I started my own business back in early 2008 and I came from public relations. I had some digital skills, but I was primarily a writer. But I was suffering under the illusion that writers don't get paid very well. And 11 years ago, you remember 11 years ago, before we had iPhones, how weird. Nobody knew much about digital marketing, so I called myself a digital marketer, and me and Google figured it out together, and now I'm a trainer. So over the last 7 or 8 years, I've transitioned out of doing things for people into helping people do it for themselves. Plan B, I am also a yoga and meditation teacher, and I own a cave house in Turkey, slightly larger than this one. So if the kids and the mortgage and the burbs doesn't work out, this is where you'll find me. So the client relationship from woe to go, the joy of new beginnings. Everybody's in love. It's like a mutual admiration society. All of a sudden you're like deeply interested in nanotechnology and you're telling all your friends about white goods. Oh, it's really interesting. And everything's wonderful. And then you are some kind of exotic genius in their minds because you do tech and everybody thinks that's very exotic, very unusual, and then, of course, the problems begin. The first cut hurts. First time a client shortchanges you. Anyone been shortchanged? Anyone not been paid at all? Anyone have to take a client to the small claims court or get a debt recovery person involved? So if it hasn't happened to you yet, then it's probably the case that you haven't been in business for yourself long enough. It's almost a rite of passage. It will happen, if not already, then certainly in the future. The escalation. And then, of course, you get to the point where you're like, that's it. I'm stacking shelves in Woolworths. It looks like a very easy job. Or worse, I have lots of clients come to me because they're like, I don't want to deal with people anymore. I'm going to pivot my business and I'm going to sell stuff on the internet and I'm not going to talk to anyone. And of course, if it was easy, we'd all be doing it, right? One major skill, or I would suggest the primary skill of being self-employed is communication. Yeah, you have to deal with people in all their many and varied glories, so we have to get better at that. All right, warning signs. They don't follow your procedure to book in your initial phone call. Who books a phone call with people as a kind of a first step type thing? Great, awesome. So I use Acuity scheduling. Calendly is also wonderful. And attached to that is a list of questions. And if people cannot be bothered answering those questions, then that's the first warning sign. Yeah? If they skip straight to the contact form and they say, can you call me? Or worse, they call you and they're like, hi, how much for a website? Back away. They bitch about other service providers. Anybody had that scenario before? Yeah? They're like, oh, I had so many of those. The reason I'm up here today is because I've made all the mistakes. I'm very qualified to give this talk. So yeah, they come to you and they're like, oh, the last website designer let me down. They took my money. Now I have none. Can you help? You know, and of course I've gone, sure, whatever. It's all mapped out in my head. Yeah, because I'm some kind of special unicorn. I don't need to write anything down. You should just be able to suck it out. They're too quick to commit. Anyone had those people before? Yeah? And how did it end?
They don't pay.
They don't pay, yeah. So why would that be a warning sign? Can anyone guess?
Desperation?
Desperation. They are desperate. They are in a state of emergency. This is not a good starting point for a successful client relationship. Being in a state of emergency, it's like a drowning person, yeah? You want to avoid them because they're drowning and they're going to pull you down with them. And perhaps related to number 4 is they are a victim with a sob story. And that might sound cruel and it might sound harsh, but I think it's important, and especially for those bleeding hearts in the room, of which I am most definitely a bleeding heart, you've got to be super careful, because people who are victims with a sob story cannot be helped. They have their own things to work through with a psychologist, a professional, and unfortunately, fortunately, we are not professionals. So then you get to this point. And this point with me, happened probably with the birth of the second baby. So I had baby number 1 and I was like, I am a superwoman. I have got this sorted. And my partner is also self-employed. We both work from home. We have a very nice house. I'm like living my best life right now. #blessed. And then second baby comes along and it all went to shit. And everybody would say to us, oh, you guys are like living the dream. And I'm like, this is hell on earth. And that's one of the reasons why I started training as a legitimate way to leave my children behind and run away to Melbourne and start running courses. So who's been in this point? Woolworths is looking attractive. Yep. You're thinking, I was a pretty good waitress. I quite like waitressing. Why not? All right. So what to do when the shit hits the fan and it's seriously not a good thing? Stop hiding. Yeah, you want to hide. I know. I've got a cave in Turkey. I could run away. And if you're lucky, they will tell you there's a problem. So if they tell you there's a problem, it means they respect you and they have some communication skills. Yeah, they have that emotional maturity to say, hey, I'm not happy. So this is a good thing. They're doing you a favour. You want to pick up the phone as soon as possible. And I'd say, ideally, you're picking up the phone well before you get into an emergency situation, but certainly you want to get on the phone as soon as possible. And I know how much you don't want to get on the phone, but it's super important that you do because of all the nuances that are lost in written communication. And like I said, I consider one of my primary skills to be writing, and all the time, you know, I think I've been misunderstood. Change the team who's working on the project. So whoever is dealing with the client on a day-to-day basis, you want to move them off and get yourself or somebody higher up on the project, the general manager, perhaps the CEO, the owner. And then you want to forget about your billable hours. So if it is a proper client emergency, you want to throw that out the window. And I'm going to talk about how to be more future focused and how to design for profit so that we don't find ourselves in the situation when we are literally bleeding money. But your reputation is the most valuable thing, or one of the most valuable business assets you have. So it's super important that you do your best to keep this in mind. Because oftentimes you could be a hero. This is actually an awesome opportunity. When something goes wrong in your business, this is a fantastic opportunity for you to have positive PR out of it. Incidentally, the first $5 I ever spent on boosting a post on Facebook, when that first came out in 2012, I had a troll. yes, it was the best $5 I ever spent. I had people calling to apologise on behalf of the person. I had 2 people book in as a direct result of this troll. So it's not necessarily a bad thing, it's the way that you manage it that can really turn the situation around. So most importantly, people want to be seen and heard. Yeah, this is a fundamental human thing. Has anybody gotten on Twitter before to complain about a company because you're frustrated and you've emailed the support desk and it's just going nowhere? I had somebody from Xero call me the other day because I had to tweet. Yeah, I'd been through, say again?
There's people there? There's people at Xero?
There are people at Xero, yeah. Thanks to Twitter, one of them called me. So now I've got some client satisfaction. So the point is that you need to kind of acknowledge somebody and acknowledge that the feelings that they're in without, you're not necessarily saying it's my fault, I've done something wrong, you're just acknowledging them. And then what you could say, what you may say, is I'm sorry that you feel this way. I'm sorry that this experience hasn't lived up to your expectations. What I need from you is, can you do that? What I propose is, or let's turn this around. Yeah, you're proactive and you're acknowledging the fact that it's a shitty situation. They're not happy and you're acknowledging that. Oftentimes that's enough. Oftentimes that's all you have to do. And then they go, oh, okay, I'm acknowledged. She's seen me, she's heard me. So I'm not a huge fan of Tim Ferriss. He's a little bit too manic for me, and the whole 4-hour working week neglected one small detail, which is what is the winning business idea that's just going to bring the cash in. But I think that this quote is absolutely gold. A person's success in life can usually be measured by the number of uncomfortable conversations he or she is willing to have. And I can think of the negative feedback that I have sought and received when I've asked somebody, you know, what did you think of this course I delivered, or what did you think of whatever? And I can remember it like it was yesterday. Yes, it hurt my tender little heart, but it was such a useful thing, and there are nuggets of gold in negative feedback. All right, so let's be proactive so that we get paid and we don't have these emergency triage situations. First things first is your website is a gate, and this gives you the opportunity to set things up to work in your favour. So my business changed like that when I put my prices on my website. Like I said earlier, I came from the PR industry, so I modelled my digital marketing consultancy on the PR industry, and we had retainer clients in the PR industry, so that's what I did. Every month I would service clients and they'd stay with me for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and I would bill in arrears. So I was often behind all the time pretty much, and the power was with the client. So when I put the prices on the website, when I defined what I was doing, when I packaged it up, all of a sudden my stress went down here. And you don't need to, of course, state what the price is, but at least give them some kind of indication of it so that you're not getting phone calls from people expecting a WordPress website for $100. You also want to pre-qualify prospects with a smart website form. Ask better questions and ask whatever questions you want to ask. I don't want people to do business with me if they're a fan of Celine Dion. Just not interested in Celine Dion fans. So I make sure that my musical tastes are scattered throughout my business so that I attract like-minded people, yeah? And effective marketing should do that. It should attract and it should repel in equal measures. What does ineffective marketing do? Nothing, absolutely nothing. It's blah, blah, blah. It's beige, it blends into the background noise. State your process on your website so you can save everyone's time, and then they can say, not for me, and that's great, and then have a polished standard answer to how much. I talk about money quite a lot with clients in groups, in group courses, face-to-face, on the internet, and it bamboozles me how little we discuss money and how much we need to as business owners. And what I suggest to clients is that they talk to themselves aloud in the shower, because You do not want to answer this question for the first time ever in a situation with a client. You want to make sure that you've practiced and that you feel comfortable, or at least a little more comfortable. Your process. So what I suggest as a best case scenario is that you time bind your design process. You have at least 8 weeks out is when you book people in, and that this date is clear to the client over and over and over again in the automated emails that you send. And there's no excuse for this now, because we have all this awesome software which is cheap or free sometimes. So we can remind people over and over again, and there's no excuse for missing that. If the client needs to reschedule, they must give 14 to 21 days notice on that date. So that means that you are always booked ahead, yeah, by at least 8 weeks. Ensure that your proposal includes your payment terms and a little about your process. Yeah, so I don't give long quotes because people don't like to read, but I always state what the payment terms are, and I'll always give a bit of an overview on the process, because people get intimidated by website design. They get intimidated by digital marketing, and it becomes like this big scary thing that they avoid, and they assume you're trying to take the piss, or that you're somehow going to rip them off, take advantage of them, because they are feeling so intimidated. Can you remember the last time you felt intimidated? Yeah? Keep this in mind. This is how your clients feel. This is how your clients feel all the time. Be generous with templates. So show people how to give you the information you need, and you might consider doing that with online forms to collect the necessary information. Is this a source of friction in relationships? Is always like, bloody hell, they've got to sort out their brand, they're overhauling their whole business model because they're getting a new website, and it's a big, laborious process, and everything gets slowed right down. So whatever you can do to make that process easier with things like templates is going to be a good thing. And then finally, you want to coach people on how to be a good client. You treat people how you wish to be treated, and you model to people how you wish that they would act around you. Yeah? Get paid. Yes. Offer a discount for payment in full up front. Now, of course, you would figure that out in your profit margin. You would get handy with a calculator and figure out, okay, well, if this was my real price, maybe I'm offering 10% more for a payment plan. Does that make sense? And then you front load the payment so that staffing costs are covered by their first payment. So that means that you are not out of pocket, you are not at risk if the worst thing happens and they run away from their recurring invoices or their recurring payment plan. So you can set up recurring monthly invoices through Xero. You could also do that through PayPal. And this is the way the world is moving towards now. We have Afterpay, we have Zip Pay, we have subscriptions for things that we never had subscriptions to before. People expect that, and you can make the figure look more palatable by breaking it down like that for them. Of course, they can still get a calculator out, but it makes it more manageable for their cash flow. If you have retainer clients, then charge them a bond so that you bill them double in that first month. So you're never waiting, yeah, because this was a major source of stress for me. And the number one reason that small businesses close down is not lack of profitability. Can anybody guess why most small businesses fold?
Can't pay their tax bill.
Yeah, it's cash flow. It's cash flow. We need the cash coming in to pay the bills and to sleep at night, yeah? Each time you set a good boundary, an energy vampire loses a fang. So like I said, I'm very qualified to give this talk because I made all the mistakes multiple times over. Sometimes I'm a very slow learner. It took me a long time to figure this out. Yeah, and I've met a lot of very manipulative people where they know exactly what they're doing to get the most out of everybody around them. And they have this ability to make people volunteer their time. Case in point, small story I wasn't going to tell you. I'm at this guy's apartment. He's very charming, and he's talking about his community organisation, and it was all wonderful. And I'm starting to get, I'm starting to think, okay, I'll give you this for free and that for free and this for free. And he says to me, oh, maybe you could update my website. Oh, yes, I could update your website. And he says, okay, well, we'll just get the login details from the website designer. And he calls this guy. And I said, well, why don't you just pass the phone over to me? And I'm talking on the phone to the website designer. And I said, this is a great website that you've done. I said, do you mind if I ask you, how much do you charge this guy? And he said, oh, I did it for free. And I said to him, oh, that was very nice of you. And he said, yes, it was, wasn't it? And there was this little note in his voice, and I'm like, wow, wow. Get out of here. This is an energy vampire, and I am being seduced, because these energy vampires are oftentimes, they get far further with honey. Yeah? Because a bully, you can tell a bully. You can tell a bully. But an energy vampire, they are charming and they are charismatic, and I am very empathetic and sensitive, so I need a giant amount of distance, because otherwise I will follow them to the end of the earth. All right, so this is one of my key business values, is to make boldness your business strategy, and boldness is whatever boldness means to you. The major thing that I see business owners do is that they are reacting and responding. We fall into business. We don't intend to start a business. We often start businesses because we've been bullied, we've had a really shit boss, we have tried to get back in the job market after a break, and we're being offered 40K a year. There is no definition of what we do. The ATO still fails to recognise what is a digital marketer. Like, how exotic is that? We have candle makers, butchers and bakers, but none of what we actually do for a living is recognised. So this is a call to arms to be more proactive in what you're doing, to redesign how you do business and to decide what's going to work for you. Because we get to do that. So design your business for the best case scenario. And then learn how to communicate this in the client's best interests. Yeah, because it has to be communicated in the client's best interests if they're to be interested. Do not negotiate your process. Yeah, your process will set you free, and it is your quality control. Your process is your quality control. So hold on to that really tightly. And of course, always think about, how could this process be better? How could this process be smoother? It's oftentimes when you've had a really shitty situation happen that you go, oh, okay, I gotta overhaul this. I gotta change this, yeah? And you have the ability to do that. Be prepared to not get the job. Has anybody noticed when you kind of have a little bit of, I'm not so interested, that people actually want you more? Yeah? And when you're really like, oh, fuck, I need to pay the bills this month, they can smell it, and it's like, smells like sour desperation, and they don't want anything to do with it. So trust that more and better fabulous clients are coming. I really think we should take this term entrepreneurship back from the wankers down the road, because in my mind, entrepreneurship is creative thinking. Yeah, that's all it is. It's creative, critical thinking. It's being able to spot opportunities anywhere. So you can go to Kmart Tire and Auto Repair and have a really awesome idea on how you could use something for your business. So there are many opportunities everywhere you look, and if we can kind of keep that glass half full attitude, then it's going to be so much better. Finally, you are the boss. Can I hear I am the boss? I am the boss. So act like it, yeah? Be proactive. You are the chief executive officer, not the chief everything officer. Even if it's just a business of one, and that's me, I am a business of one, you still get to assert yourself. You still get to be proactive. You still get to make decisions. This is our primary skill, is making decisions. So my challenge to you today, what is your best case scenario? How would this play out for you? How are people able to get your skills, the best out of your skills? And how can you design your business around that? How can you get more comfortable with discomfort? Because we're all going to have those shitty situations. We're all going to have those awkward conversations with people. So how can we get more comfortable with discomfort? How can we make that comfort zone really appealing so we can be bold and be brave and then retreat back to Netflix and ice cream? What is a non-negotiable for working with you? Yeah, and I would absolutely suggest that should be your payment terms, at least 50% upfront, in full, in the bank account, before anything. And then how can you make your non-negotiables abundantly clear while expressing these from the perspective of being in your client's best interests? Thank you very much. If you are flying blind without a plan and you are a non-planner, and I think about 95% of us are non-planners, it's just that the type A personalities get all the media publicity, then I invite you to join my non-planners business plan challenge and get organised. Cool.
That was amazing. Thanks, Brooke. Any questions for Brooke? Oh, I see lots of hands. You want to do it?
Brooke, I struggle with the question, how much, on a daily basis. What's the answer? What do you say when someone rings up and the first question is how much?
Well, that thing that I was talking about earlier with the average price of this starting at, with more complex projects coming in at around, I think that's a really good starting point. But also, you know, if you find it difficult to talk about money, and I think most of us do, because most of us have been brought up to think that this is a gross thing that we should never do, then put it on the website. Yeah, it was the single best thing I did.
Hi, Brooke.
Hello, how are you?
Very good, how are you?
Good.
You mentioned online forms for onboarding. What's your recommendation for how to use those or where to get them from? I know nothing about them.
Typeform is awesome. They've just changed their free plan though, which I'm really pissed about. So you now have to pay if you want more than 4 forms. But acuity scheduling is also a possibility, especially if you were going to tie that in with a phone call. And I really suggest it's a smart idea to add a few kind of, not tricky questions, but like vetting questions. So I ask people if they're a cat person or a dog person. You could ask them, you know, John, Paul, Ringo, or the other dude? George, thank you. I'm George, by the way. But, you know, that kind of gives you a bit of an indication as to the personality type too.
Hi, Brooke. A comment first up. I do like talking about money, and just
Great.
as a comment, I had a client about 2 weeks ago. I'm doing some social media for her, and she said, you know, when I was saying, well, this is what you get per month, and she had taken up a lot of my time, and I was explaining, you know, I've actually worked 30 hours on this and you've only paid me this much, just to give you a bit of context about the value that you're getting. And she was like, well, you just want to talk about money, and it's not all about money, and I give my time away for free, but I think it's about how I pitch the value of what I do against the dollar values. That's just a comment. Now I forgot my question. So my question is, now I've forgotten it. But I was dared to sing karaoke, which I won't do. But I do like the Spice Girls, and I like the idea of putting your music on the website references. And I think my question will come back to me. So.
Look, I think communicating the value of what you offer is our responsibility, and we often place the onus on the client to figure that out, and they don't know. They're not website designers. They don't understand what we do. So that's our responsibility to communicate the value and to make them see that.
I remember my question. She's remembered her question, but before she asks it, I need to know whether the answer is cat or, like, what's the correct answer, cat or dog?
Dude, dog.
Mate.
I don't mind if you swing both ways. That works for me. But definitely not like a, you know, it's got to be cats. Yeah.
So the clients that really want a lot of hand holding and they want to meet and they want a phone call and you're just really, really investing a lot of time but you're not actually getting paid, what exact language do you use to set boundaries about when they can call, what you can talk about, how often you check in with each other? Because I just find that some clients, super easy, do what you want, I don't want to hear from you, and others are like on the phone every day.
That's your process. The first tip I have is take your phone number off the website. If you're getting a lot of that, take your phone number off the website. Nothing wrong with that. And then it would be in the process, in the quotation, this includes Monday morning meetings or Thursday afternoon meetings or whatever it is. You know, any additional meetings outside of that. Is an additional amount. And like the face-to-face stuff, when I started 11 years ago, nobody would hire me without checking I had one head and not two over coffee. But now it's not a thing. It's just not a thing. And so anyone that, wants to meet face-to-face, I'm like, dude, I'm busy. I've got kids. I've got a life. I don't need to bond with you over coffee.
Hi there. That was great, Brooke. Thank you. I really like the way you're approaching the communication and language. Obviously, like everything, there's the honeymoon period and then there's scope creep.
Yeah.
So how do you make sure they stay on process?
Yeah. So one big way is setting up the payment plan differently. And I'm not sure whether this was clear in the slide, but the first payment is 50% or more to get you in the diary, to get them in the diary. And there's a minimum engagement. They need to book 8 weeks ahead. They need to book 9 weeks ahead. I had a client. I think I did meet with them face to face, and I think that was June or May, and I was going travelling for 7 weeks, and we're in the meeting, and I'm like, well, we need to book in a time now, and they're like, but August is 3 or 4 months away, and I've got nothing going on in August between you and me, but I'm like, well, we need the date in the diary so that it's serious, so that I can send you the deposit invoice, so that I can take this seriously. So the first payment before anything starts, and also rather than put the payments on deliverables, because I would guess a lot of people say, first concept, when I present the first concepts, then the next payment is due. When you get back to me with round 1 or 2 or whatever, then the next payment is due. Don't do that. Say the project starts at this date, and then on this date I send the second invoice or the third invoice or the monthly payment thing. So that it has to do with the calendar time, and they can't go away on a meditation retreat for a month, or they're waiting for their GM to get back 2 months later so that he can have a look at it and say, yes, it's fine. Do you know what I'm saying? Because otherwise you're being held ransom for that last payment, and it's like, oh, just one more thing. Anyone had that? How fun is it? It's, so get away from that ransom, that power play, by having that the time-bounded invoicing.
Hey, Brooke. So I've done Brooke's course and she's amazing, just so you know, and she didn't pay me to say that. But a question obviously following on from this. So in my contract, because I was obviously screwed around by a few clients, so I brought in a small business contract. Yep. And in there I really clearly state, face-to-face meetings incur this type of charge. And unfortunately I often have to distinguish that, like, over the phone is still kind of classified as a meeting. Do you know what I mean? Because I get calls like, oh, it's only going to be 15 minutes. Yeah. And I stupidly, being very focused on people pleasing, go, yep, no problems. And I'm sitting there going, look, I'll just call them on my way home. It's fine. But then it becomes a kind of like, I'd like to speak to you, I'd like to speak to you, I'd like to speak to you. Yeah. And I suppose it's more about me just going, look, those phone calls still come at a cost. But I suppose I just want to know the right way to word it because, I do have the time to kill, because obviously it's like a side hustle. So I do have the time to kill, so to speak, on the way home. Yep. I mean, I could be listening to the Spice Girls. Yeah. But, I suppose I just worry about how to word it.
Put that in the process from the get-go. If you need to renegotiate with somebody, put it in writing. Contracts are wonderful, but when I took the client to the small claims court, the judge didn't ask to look at the contract. He asked to look at the email evidence. And so I printed out the emails, and beyond the time when the woman stopped paying, she kept asking, and here's evidence of it. So it's in the process, it's written down, and the other thing too is be more generous with your marketing. So I might sound like I'm not interested in coffee. I'm very interested in coffee at my convenience with people that I want to have coffee with. And I've got a great blog, and I've got this piece of information and that free thing and this free thing. So when someone says, how do I do this? I can just point them to a blog I prepared earlier.
Hi, thanks, Brooke. That was great. Just coming back to the payment terms, my business writes content for engineering companies specifically.
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
Sorry to hear. I used to work with engineers. They're like, okay.
So I've got a recurring product, regular blog articles and things, and people do pay 100% up front.
Great.
Just for better cash flow and
Yep.
to keep the momentum going.
Yep.
But I have had some larger corporate companies,
Yep.
and they're
Painful.
they're sign up for our vendor system.
Yeah.
We only process invoices. It's 30, 60 days. I mean,
Yeah.
how do you handle bigger clients that just don't have the facilities or aren't allowed to pay you up front or 50% up front?
I think there's a few different ways. Number one, you might just decide that's just the cost of doing business with these, and that they're a surer bet. They will pay. It'll just take long. And you've got other clients who are keeping your cash flow healthy. The other thing too is not all of them actually have that kind of stuff. So I just got paid by Dakin, and they flew me around Australia to run digital marketing for their dealer network, and they paid. There was no, what's it called, purchase order number, blah blah blah. They just paid. So I think if you come in on the proactive, if you're like, this is how we do things around here, then people respond to that.
Really enjoyed your talk so far.
Thank you.
One of the things about believing in yourself.
Yes.
I remember I had a situation where I was getting a lot of tire kickers and a lot of people coming in and asking for quotes, but never really following through. And I put the prices up 10%, and I had less people coming through, but I had more time to.
Yeah. Absolutely. That has been my experience, and it's been my clients' experience, and I hold people's hand while they put their price up all the time, and they always say the same thing, which is, oh my God, nobody complained. And in fact, my loyal customers came back and said, that's wonderful, we're so pleased that you put your price up, and all of a sudden the tire kickers are no longer around. So yeah, it's been my experience that every single time I put my price up, I get better quality people who take it more seriously, who get better results, and who are very grateful and a joy to work with. Yeah, because really, there's this thing called YouTube. So, if you can't be bothered Googling and you can't figure it out on YouTube, then, good luck to you. Really, there's so many free resources on the internet. You don't need to be dealing with tire kickers.
Yeah, it was a great talk, Brooke. I just wanted to find out more about refund policies, and do you recommend them?
Yes, my refund policy is no refunds. I don't think I've ever given a refund. I'm trying to think, but I don't think it's been a thing. And I have always had the payment, some payment up front. So that was super useful. But yeah, I don't think I've ever had to give a refund. Yeah, because I think if you've got a really good proposal, then you're covering yourself. Yeah, and you can demonstrate, you can point to things that are written in black and white and say, I've delivered. A matter of taste is not the same as, and kind of further to that, I think a lot of people struggle. I know a lot of people struggle to express design in plain English. So don't. That's why we have Pinterest. That's why we can say, point to some examples of websites that you like and tell me why you like them. Point to some examples of websites you dislike and tell me why you dislike them. I commissioned a piece of music from a music producer. Same process. He said, send me some music you like and tell me why you like it. Because, words aren't always sufficient. Words are often not sufficient, and it breaks my heart to say that.
Fantastic, Brooke.
Thanks, Vlad.
So two things. I was saying that the less people charge, the more they want.
Yes.
People seem to just there seems to be an inverse relationship.
Yeah.
that people want more and more the less you charge.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah.
I am very generous with my marketing. I give a lot of information away. So I think that kind of helps the tyre kickers to kick some tyres around on my blog and then, you know, go somewhere else.
Yeah. One issue I wanted to seek your opinion on is, fortunately, most of my clients have paid. I've
Yep.
been very fortunate. But the problems have been with those who, like, are poor and have nothing to lose. So, like, the problem is that if you take them to court, they may defame you online, leaving false negative reviews, and, you know, you may win a Pyrrhic victory in court, you know, a judgment, but then you'll have trouble enforcing it. So for those, I've decided, just from a risk-reward point of view, to just let them go. What do you think about those cases?
I think it depends on where your line is. So, you know, I was shortchanged and I was shortchanged and I was shortchanged until it was $2,000. And then I thought, you know, I think this is my line. I think $2,000 is worth taking this client to the small claims court. And the client that I took to the small claims court was very well known in a small niche that I was operating in. So it could have gone very pear-shaped. But I think if you communicate clearly, and if she had decided to kick up a fuss, I could have coolly and calmly said, well, it was ruled in my favour, and you had a very satisfying lecture from the judge about how you were in the wrong and why. You know, and that let the Court of Public Appeals decide. So we have negative Google reviews. Anyone had a negative Google review or seen a negative Google review? And then the business owner responds and says, oh, I'm sorry you've had a bad experience, but I've just looked up our customer records and we have no record of you. I think you might have the medical centres mixed up because you've never been a customer of ours. And how does that make you feel? Better towards the business, right? So you can always turn a negative into a positive, so long as your communication skills are up to the job.
Yeah, I know it's a tricky question, but how do you scope out pricing, especially when you're starting off?
How do you scope it out?
Yeah, how do you like change it over time? Yeah.
I think we need to talk about money more. Yeah, I think because this is what everybody wants to know, right? We all want to get drunk together and then we want to ask each other how much we're charging. Yeah? Am I wrong? My friend says it'd be great if everybody just walked around with their day rates around their necks and then we'd know, you know, what to charge. You know, and I don't think there's anything wrong with doing things for free. I think in the business panel discussion yesterday, someone suggested, you know, doing strategic free jobs. You know, that's not a bad thing to do. But just be careful about who you're asking for pricing from. I always ask people to send me quotes that they've received from other service providers that do something similar to me. I always ask people how much they charge and how much they paid, because how the hell are we supposed to know otherwise? Yeah. Also be careful about who you're seeking advice from. So there's a lot of people on the internet that are willing to give away the farm for a song, and these are people you do not want to be associated with unless you want to stay poor. So, sorry, I'm making assumptions. But you know, I think it's important to realise the power of who you're hanging around with. So I've got a client, a business coaching client, her first year in business as a self-employed person, she earned $170,000. And she earned that not because she was brilliant and awesome, but because she is brilliant and awesome, but because of where she'd come from, because that was normal. Yeah, whatever industry she'd come from, that was normal to charge that amount, and she dealt with contractors and she knew how much they were charging. Whereas if you go into a Facebook group and someone says, oh yeah, I do websites for $200, then that's your gauge, yeah? So yeah, just choose your company wisely, and certainly opinions are like assholes. Everyone has one. So be super careful, because advice can be very expensive if you're taking it from the wrong person.
Cool. Thank you, Brooke. Please thank Brooke.